Dr. Arav Mehta had spent 3 years studying the impossible. The photographs spread across his desk showed the same thing. A trail of hoofprints stretching across 100 miles of Devon countryside in February 1855. Over rooftops, through 14-foot walls, across the River X where ice had never formed. They defied physics, he muttered, tracing the perfectly spaced marks, 8 inches apart, 4 inches long, each one identical to the last. His research partner, Dr. Sarah Collins, arrived at the cottage just after dawn. Her face was ghost white. They're back. Arav stood so quickly, his chair clattered backward. What? The prints. They appeared overnight. Started at your cottage door. She held out her phone, hands trembling. The photograph showed fresh hoofprints in the January snow, leading away from his rented accommodation in the exact pattern documented 171 years ago. They grabbed their equipment and followed the trail. The morning was bitter cold, mist clinging to the frozen fields. The prints were unnaturally precise, pressed deep into the snow but leaving no spray, no disturbance around the edges, as though something had simply materialized at each point. "This can't be happening," Sarah whispered. But it was. The trail led them across Old Man Henderson's farm, where the prints climbed straight up a barn wall and continued across the roof. Henderson stood in his doorway, face gray with fear, making the sign of the cross as they passed. "Same as my grandfather described," he called out. "Devil's work." Arav photographed everything with clinical precision, but his hands shook. The prints descended the barn's far side and continued toward the river. At the bank, they didn't stop. The trail continued across the frozen surface, except the ice had only formed the night before, too thin to support anything heavier than a bird. "We need to call someone," Sarah said. "Police, university, someone." "And tell them what?" Arav crouched beside the tracks. "That we've documented an impossible phenomenon with no rational explanation? They'll think we faked it for publicity." The prints emerged on the far bank and wound through a copse of ancient oaks. That's when they noticed something that made Arav's blood run cold. The trail was curving. Slowly, deliberately, it was turning back. Toward them. "Arav," Sarah's voice cracked. They followed for another mile. The prints led to the ruins of St. Mary's Church, abandoned since the 1960s. The wooden door hung crooked on rusted hinges. Inside, darkness pooled like water. Arav's flashlight beam cut through the gloom. He gasped. Every surface, walls, floor, ceiling, the remains of the altar, was covered in hoofprints. Thousands of them, layered over each other, as though something had been trapped here, pacing endlessly in the dark. Sarah found the journal on the altar, its leather cover cracked with age. The date inside read February 9th, 1855. The handwriting was frantic, increasingly illegible. "It comes for those who seek it. We thought to study the phenomenon. We were wrong. The prints are not a path, they are an invitation. Once you follow them, once you try to understand, you become part of the pattern." Thomas walked into the snow 3 nights ago. His footprints became hoofprints before he reached the trees. He didn't scream. He couldn't. By then, he wasn't Thomas anymore. The entry ended mid-sentence. The pen dragged across the page in a long, jagged line. "We need to leave." Sarah backed toward the door. "Now." A sound stopped them. Soft, rhythmic, the slow, deliberate click of hooves on stone. It was coming from above them. Arav aimed his flashlight at the ceiling. The prints were moving, forming in real time across the old wooden beams, each one appearing with a soft thud that echoed through the church. The trail descended the wall toward them, defying gravity, each print hanging in the air for a moment before settling into reality. They ran, out into the blinding snow, their breath tearing from their lungs. Behind them, the church groaned, and through the doorway, they glimpsed something. A darkness deeper than shadow, shaped like nothing that should exist, moving with the sound of hoofbeats. They didn't stop running until they reached Arav's car. He fumbled with the keys, hands numb from cold and terror. The engine roared to life. "Look at the snow," Sarah whispered. Fresh prints led from the church. 2 trails this time, parallel, following the road. Following them, Arav threw the car into reverse, tires spinning on ice. As they fled toward the main road, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The prints were keeping pace, materializing in their wake, perfectly spaced, perfectly formed. Sarah checked her phone. Her scream filled the car. "What? What is it?" She turned the screen toward him. A news alert. Mysterious hoofprints reported across Devon. Phenomenon mirrors. 1855 event. Below it, a photograph someone had posted to social media. 2 sets of human footprints in the snow, leading into a field near St. Mary's ruins. Except in the photograph, they weren't human footprints anymore. Arav looked down at his boots. The treads looked normal. He pressed his foot into the snowy roadside. The print that formed was 4 inches long, 8 inches from the last. Perfectly spaced. Sarah was crying. What did we do? Arav didn't answer. He couldn't, because now he understood. The prints weren't following them. They were them. And across 100 miles of Devon, in an ever-widening spiral, the devil's footprints were walking again.